3/4 of a mile, Maverick. Call the ball. Roger, Maverick has the ball. Standing by. Thanks, Dave. Dave, Alan, how are you guys? The day after the Labor Day weekend. Um, yeah, I did not work very hard today because we got a new cat. I'll keep this short because I know you guys are here for stories, but you guys all know about Oreo. I lost her recently. The Bookhouse cat. Um, well, I wasn't going to get another cat for a while, but a friend of ours who lives in Dallas, she and her husband rescue cats. Thank you, Donna. And they found a little kitten just by itself, but with a male cat, which is pretty unusual. And it's 14 weeks old. We picked him up on Sunday night after the Sunday show. We drove to Dallas. And hi. And we haven't named him for sure yet, but he's very skittish, but he's also very laid back. Um, which what I mean by that is like noises bother him, things like that, while he's getting used to our place, I should say. He started to calm down today somewhat, but this is just not a cat who will scratch you or anything like that. He's really really sweet. That's right, Alan. You guys found a new kitten too. Um, so anyway, he right now we're keeping him in our bedroom till he gets used to the whole thing, and he's just been running under the bed, and I've been worried about him. What I did today is I worked some in the morning out here, and then I went inside and I basically laid in bed with him, and watched some shows and petted him and played with him, and it was kind of 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but he came a long way today. So I'm really glad that I did that instead of bringing him out here to the book house, or for that matter, um, I'm just glad I stayed with him because he came a long way today. So anyway, we haven't named him yet. Tonight, Danielle suggested Darth, so we might go with, I don't know. We'll give it a couple more days, but uh, he the name I thought of at first was Jim Nightshade, from Something Wicked This Way Comes, because he's a mostly black cat, but he has like almost like grayish white underneath him, including his tail. He's pretty cool looking. So anyway, I thought of Jim Nightshade, and but I don't know. He doesn't seem like a Jim, you know. So we'll see. Dave says I listened to the 2023 annual Halloween eZine episode today. It was awesome. Thanks, man. That's been a tradition for some years now. Um, I'm glad it made your commute more enjoyable. The last Sunday, I don't have my calendar in front of me, but if memory serves, the last Sunday in October is when the Thomas brothers and I are doing this year's Halloween special. So, you guys, we've done a lot of different things over the years. We've told true stories of the paranormal or the strange at the very least. We've read ghost stories. They've read their stuff. I've read stuff. If you have any suggestions for this year, please email me, Lovecraft eZine at gmail.com. Aw, thanks, Donna. Um, I opened this little cheap package of toys, that's like $5, but it has all these little, like 20 plastic little different things in it tonight. And because we did the laser pointer thing with him. I did it on the bed, and he loved it. He kept going round and round and around. And so then I got out the toys for him, and he batted those around for a while, and then he fell asleep right next to me. In fact, that's just where I came from. So, man, I I really was I was very tempted to tell you guys I needed to stay with my cat and and tonight, but he'll be there when I get back. Yeah, that's right, Kelly. And the other thing is, he's 14 weeks old, but he is a big boy already. Um, he is almost as big as Oreo was. Of course, Oreo was a small cat, and he's got big paws, which is another sign. So I think he might get to be bigger than Henry, which is another rescue cat that I'll tell you that story another time. But basically, if you haven't heard it already, but basically I gave to a GoFundMe that these same folks had, and this was like 5 years ago. This this I guess I'm telling the story. This cat, she found this cat. It was Henry. Um, he had broken limbs. He's got BBs inside him where kids shot him with BBs. Um, and she started a GoFundMe. I just thought that is so awful, and I gave to the GoFundMe. And about a year after we had Henry, I was looking back over my GoFundMe's, the ones that you've given to. You can look at the history of it, and I was like, wait a second. I gave to the GoFundMe to help Henry for a couple of years before we even had him. That's so weird. Uh, what happened was Logan was friends with their kid. They're about the same age, and this was Logan was 17 or so, and he was over at their house. They were hanging out, and they hadn't found a home for Henry. Basically, Henry was just one of like 20 cats in their house. And he asked Nathan if they wanted to keep him, and Nathan said, "You can have him if you want him." That's his friend. And Logan called me and asked me, and he said they're really nice people but Henry keeps coming up to me and wants to be petted and wants attention, and he goes, he just needs more attention than he's going to get in a house with 20 cats. So he said, yeah, of course you can bring him home. And that's how that happened. So I gave to Henry's GoFundMe, I guess about 3 years before I realized that I'd given to my own cat. So anyway, I hope you guys are having a nice Tuesday if you're back at work from the weekend, and if you're not, that's even better. Dave says, was Henry the one that used to tuck your wife in? No, that was Charlie. Excuse me. That was George. We found George and his brother Charlie. Logan and Danielle found him on a bike ride. It's been about a dozen years or so now, and they were really little. I'd say about the size of your new kitten, Alan. And Logan was little at the time, of course. He was like 9, maybe. He called me and he was just sobbing that people could abandon uh, two little kittens like this. And I said, yeah, of course you guys can bring them home. And George just developed this habit of tucking Danielle in at night, when we would all go to bed, and he would kind of make his little rounds. He'd check on Logan and walk around, then he'd come get in bed. He'd kind of say hi to me for a second, but then he'd go over and he would lay on Danielle's chest, and he'd just lay there and purr, and she would pet him, basically tucking her in at night. And then we lost him, but we still had Charlie for a couple of years. And I can't explain this. I don't know how to explain it. But right after George died, Charlie started tucking Danielle in, and it it's just amazing. It it's one of those magical things in life that you look at and you're like, I don't know how to explain this. I really don't, but there it is, and it just happened all the way until Charlie left us, passed away. So, oh, I'm glad the kitten's going to be all right, Alan. So yeah, it was George, Dave, and then it was Charlie. So, and yeah, thanks, Donna. Logan does have a very good heart. I tell him that all the time. In fact, I told him that again today when he helped me get the new little one from under the bed. And he was just, I got this great picture of Logan holding him to his chest and just petting him. And he says things like, "You can be close to my heart, feel my heartbeat." And he's just a good person. I'm proud of that kid. Um, you can learn a lot of things in life, but kindness. Uh, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but kindness is not ubiquitous. Talent, the funny thing about talent is ubiquitous. So many humans are good at something, whether it be writing or music or a sport or whatever. But I wish that kindness was as ubiquitous as talent is. Uh, Lost a little bit of faith in the human race again today. Um, I went to pick up a prescription at CVS and realized this 3 hours later, but I left my debit card on the tap thing. And I only realized this when I got a text from my bank saying that I tried to use my card, but I put in the wrong PIN code. And then I was like, oh no. And so I spent 45 minutes on hold, holding the cat with one hand, and holding the phone with one hand, and petting my new kitten with the other. But we got it canceled, no fraudulent charges. Um, the secret PIN code did its job. Uh, and they're sending me out a new card, so no harm done. I just have to change a lot of things that use my debit card automatically now for bills and stuff, but that's okay. Uh, I told Danielle I'm really feeling like a absent-minded old man lately because this happened today at Necronomicon. I lost my earbuds. I lost the my laptop charger, and I lost my phone charger. Well, I should say the phone charger was stolen at Necronomicon, which doesn't make me happy. But whoever did that is in the minority because it's mostly really great people who show up at Necronomicon. So I do not want to leave my cat too long. I'm going to do a longer Thursday night than tonight, but I do want to read you guys some things as usual. Um, Before I start, everybody tell me how you're doing. Tell me how your Tuesday was, and I'll keep an eye on the chat. Kelly, no, I'm not going to the film festival this year, but Gwen Callahan, her and her husband Brian are in charge of it. She wants me to go next year. So, excuse me. I think what I'm going to do from now on, guys, is Necronomicon is every 2 years. The film festival is every year, the main one, and then I'm not the expert on this, but they got a couple of other ones they're launching, I guess is the word. They did one in Chaz went to it. I can't Chaz and Pete went to it several months back. Alabama, De, Mobile. Yeah. Thanks, Kelly. Um, and it wasn't too busy, I guess, but that's to be expected for the first year. So anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Necronomicon every time, which will now be every other year on the even numbered years in August. So that's easy to remember. And on the odd number years, I'm going to go to the film festival in Portland, Oregon. So, I hope you guys do that too. And the other thing is, uh, as an experiment, I asked you guys a while back, if you remember, and others, if they would be interested in a Lovecraft eZine, kind of a mini convention here in the Dallas area. And I was surprised. So many people said yeah, and a lot of people who aren't even near here. So I really think we're going to turn that into a thing. My friend Vince LaRosa wants to talk about it some more. I think I'm going to be on his show tomorrow. I'll give you guys the news on that, but let me write this down so I eZine convention. Okay, so I don't know if you guys mind me talking like this before I start reading, but um, it won't be. It'll probably have a few panels if Pete's going to be there because Pete's really good at organizing that sort of thing. But I have more in mind, something really informal, like us, you know, going to dinners, going to lunch, drinking, and in between all that, um, maybe set up some topics ahead of time, like, okay, if it's a 2-day con, let's say, which is probably as long as it would be, this first day, let's talk about these couple of things, in kind of a panel open to everyone discussion. And the next day, ditto. So, I hope you guys are interested in that. Um, Selfishly, it's going to be in the Dallas area if and when we do it, which I really do think we're going to, because so many people said yes. It actually surprised me. I thought like 3 people would say yes, but it was a lot more than that. Um, but I guess stay tuned. I'll have more um, news on that in the coming weeks. Really, I won't wait too long. We'll get something figured out. And yeah, I hope so. I hope DFW is convenient for a lot of people. I just I'd rather not travel, um, besides the half-hour car ride to Dallas. Um, I had to go home a day early at Necronomicon, so, you know. Anyway, you guys are probably tired of listening to me jaw, so I'm going to read some things here. Now, there are there are poets who there are poets who, excuse me, who, you might describe as writing dark poetry. Certainly the easiest example is Edgar Allan Poe, but there are other poets who, are you might not associate with that, but still wrote a lot of dark stuff. And my favorite poet, one of them, is Robert Frost, and his poetry, some of it is a lot darker than a lot of people realize. Um, So I would like to read several of his poems, and then I'll see what time it is and see if it's time to get back to my new kitten or not. But hey, Jazz, we were just talking about an eZine convention. Stay tuned. I'll have news on that in the coming weeks. Let's see here. Which one do I want to start with? Yeah, there we go. I'm glad. It'll be in the Dallas area. I know that for sure. All right, this one's called My November Guest. And actually, if you want to Google this, Matt Carden, part of our weird fiction community, wrote has a post about this, about Robert Frost, from as far back as March 2013. And the title of it is Robert Frost as a Terrifying Poet of a Frozen Inner Landscape. And actually, you don't have to Google it. I'll post the link right in the side chat. And, I won't read this, but just touch on it. Of course, Robert Frost stopping by woods on a snowy evening. Man, I'm stuffed up or allergies or something. That's probably his most famous poem, one of them anyway. But um, yeah, check out that short article when you get time. Now this one is called My November Guest. I feel like you're not going to get my best reading voice tonight. My sorrow, when she's here with me, thinks these dark days of autumn rain are beautiful as days can be. She loves the bare, the withered tree. She walks the sodden pasture lane. Her pleasure will not let me stay. She talks, and I am fain to list. She's glad the birds are gone away. She's glad her simple worsted gray is silver now with clinging mist. The desolate, deserted trees, the faded earth, the heavy sky, the beauties she so truly sees, she thinks I have no eye for these, and vexes me for reason why. Not yesterday I learned to know the love of bare November days before the coming of the snow, but it were vain to tell her so, and they are better for her praise. I really like that. I've got some of this highlighted. Not yesterday I learned to know the love of bare November days before the coming of the snow. Uh, a lot of you lucky people are up north in New England and places like that. You guys know I'm from Iowa, so this poem brings me home. That's exactly how Novembers are there. Once October's over and the leaves are off the trees and the color is gone, but it hasn't snowed yet. So let's find another one on my list. And I like this one. This is titled In a Disused Graveyard by Robert Frost. The living come with grassy tread to read the gravestones on the hill. The graveyard draws the living still, but never any more the dead. The verses in it say and say, the ones who living come today to read the stones and go away tomorrow, dead, will come to stay. So sure of death, the marbles rhyme, yet can't help marking all the time how no one dead will seem to come. What is it men are shrinking from? It would be easy to be clever and tell the stones men hate to die and have stopped dying now forever. I think they would believe the lie. This is I don't claim to be an expert on poetry. I've wrote some poems, actually won a national prize for one poem once that my wife entered. She didn't tell me until she didn't tell me about it until she got the notice that I had won the number one prize, which was $100 to gift certificate to Barnes and Noble. So that was good. So that was a nice surprise. That was a few years ago. But so that said, this poem is well, all of his are, but this one's interesting. This is A B B A. So each stanza is 4 lines. I don't have an English degree or even a high school diploma, but um, as self-taught as I am, I've read a bit about this. And what I mean by ABBA is like that first line, the living come with grassy tread to read the gravestones on the hill. So those two end words don't rhyme. But the next line rhymes with line 2. The graveyard draws the living still, but never any more the dead. So dead rhymes with tread in line 1. But it's not that way in every stanza. Stanza 2, let's see here. A, B, B, B. Okay. This is really complicated poetry writing. So it's ABBA in stanza 1. It's ABBB in stanza 2. In stanza 3, it's AABB. And in stanza 4, it's A, B, B. Wait a minute. Stanza 4, it's A, B, A, B, which is the easiest form of poetry to write. Well, sorry, not quite, but close enough. Um, the man was a really talented writer, not just to write poetry, but to write it so deliberately like this. Anyway, I like in a disused graveyard. So you can see already, if you haven't read any Frost or very little, you can see already just tonight that what a dark poet he was. Anyway, Into My Own is the next one I'd like to read. One of my wishes is that these dark trees, so old and firm they scarcely show the breeze, were not as 'twere the merest mask of gloom, but stretched away into the edge of doom. I should not be withheld but that some day into their vastness I should steal away, fearless of ever finding open land, or highway where the slow wheel pours the sand. I do not see why I should ever turn back, or those should not set forth upon my track, to overtake me, who should miss me here, and long to know if I still held them dear. They would not find me changed from him they knew, only more sure of all I thought was true. My favorite stanza is the first one. One of my wishes is that these dark trees, so old and firm they scarcely show the breeze, were not as 'twere the merest mask of gloom, but stretched away into the edge of doom. So, Bradbury, you know, I don't think he wrote a lot of poetry, but I could be wrong. I mostly been focused on his prose. But maybe you're right. Maybe I need to look this up. Um, check something real quick. It looked as if. Okay. This is called Once by the Specific. Or specific. Once by the Pacific. And my favorite two lines, I'll give you those first, are three lines. It looked as if a night of dark intent was coming, and not only a night, an age. Someone had better be prepared for rage. But I will, I'll read the whole thing. It's a short poem. Yeah, Bradbury writes very poetic prose, just like Joe Pulver did, just like other writers. I can't think of another example right now, but yeah. By the way, um, I don't know if well, you probably have, but books that I was thinking about this today, and this is a non sequitur, but uh, novels that are basically interconnected short stories, but putting them together, they turn into a novel deliberately by the author, of course. Um, a really good example of this is um, Boy's Life by Robert McCammon. If you haven't read that, you really should. It's just incredible. And I'll write a note to talk about this on Thursday because you guys are here to hear me read Boy's Life Thursday. Okay. But you should check out Boy's Life. I'm not saying it's weird fiction. It isn't. It's about a boy in 1964 Alabama who's 12 years old, and it is a very poetic book. What Chaz just said made me think of it again, and interconnected stories that make uh, one connected large story of the novel is just brilliant. And the what I would what I would use to describe that book in one word is magical. And when I say magical, I don't mean the paranormal or the supernatural, although that certainly makes appearances in this book. I just mean waking up and realizing how amazing life is, really. And yeah, I mean, so many examples. Dark matter, the size of the Milky Way. Um, you know, why does life exist at all? The consciousness that occurred in us, that happened in us 70,000 years or so ago. None of that is supernatural, but if you stop appreciating it, that's. I'm an atheist, but I believe in magic, and that's the kind of magic I believe in. Always not allowing yourself to get used to life, not allowing yourself to get used to just how amazing it is that we're here at all, right? Um, Anyway, if you haven't read that book, really do yourself a favor and grab it. Another author who did several books like this is Charles Grant. You guys know how I feel about that guy and his work. But as I said, non sequitur. Boy's Life is on YouTube for free. Wow. The Robert R. McCammon Boy's Life. That's what you're saying? Well, regardless, I hope you liked it, buddy. Um, I got your text, but I haven't been able to look at that yet. I've been really, you missed the first part, I think, but I've been involved with the new cat all day. So that and working on the YouTube channel. Um, Good. I'm glad. It makes me really happy when someone reads something I recommended and they like it. And if you don't like it, you're wrong. Kidding. It's all subjective. All right. While we're in this sort of mood, gathered around the eZine virtual campfire. Oh, good, Alan. That's wonderful. Did you buy the limited edition or did you get it on Kindle? It's really cheap on Kindle right now. $2.99. Alan's talking about Gateways to Abomination by Matthew Bartlett. It's been a while since I read it, but I remember enjoying it. And I recommended it today because there were just a couple of limited editions left of the 10-year edition, I guess you'd say. Anyway, it's September now. This is the first Tuesday night horror reading in September. So good. It doesn't matter. You'll enjoy it, Alan. Uh, so we've all of us weird fiction people. We've got autumn and Halloween on the brain, right? I don't think you guys know this, but you guys know about the Lovecraft using Facebook page, not the group that we're all posting on, but the page where basically Alan and I post things on that have to do with horror, weird fiction, cosmic horror, all that kind of stuff. Um, that's the big one. There's I have another page called Always Autumn, Always Halloween. I think that's it. Yeah, actually, I'll give you the link. No, sorry, I'm sorry. Always Halloween, comma, always autumn. But that's okay because I'm gonna post the link in here for you. So if you're a horror person, which I assume you are if you're listening to me, and a autumn person and a Halloween person, check it out. I've been trying to post more on it lately. So it's just fun stuff. I wanted to let you guys know about that. And before I read the next thing, I did want to just briefly talk about. By the way, you guys can always feel free to give me feedback, whether it's here or in an email. If you like something on Tuesday nights or Thursday nights, or if there's something you don't like as much, just let me know. But I do want to talk about why, telling stories to other humans and why I love it so much. Um, why humans love it so much. First of all, um, it's for the same reason that we love a fire, right? It's programmed right into us that we spent hundreds of thousands of years around, well, not maybe 70,000 years, but a very long time around a fire at night, um, telling each other stories to pass the time. And we are a storytelling species. And yeah, 200K, maybe I just don't know how long we've been telling stories. I should have looked that up before I started talking about it, but maybe one of you guys can. But my point is that we're a storytelling species, and I love to read, but I also really love audio and audio drama. Now, a couple of reasons why. I didn't have a TV growing up, and um, what I did have was a radio. And I discovered that there was this program called the CBS Radio Mystery Theater that would come on almost every night on one of the AM stations in Des Moines. It was a national show, and it was narrated by, it was hosted by E.G. Marshall. Yep, dun dun dun. And it was, an audio play in 3 acts, and in between each act, he would introduce the story, and in between each act, the commercials, he would, have a commentary on it, and then he would do an outro too. And he had a perfect voice for it, and I just love that show. Some of those, looking at those, listening to those now, some of them are still great, some are still good, and some of them are awful hokey, but I love them all just the same. And so there was that. The other thing that I discovered, that was from 1974 to 1982. So I probably discovered Mystery Theater somewhere around 1978 or so, when I was 7 or 8. And the other thing I discovered a couple of years after that was the local station KRNT, 10:30 almost every night, would play what they called the golden age of radio theater. And this was my introduction to the old time radio of the 30s, 40s, and up to the mid 50s or so, which was as precisely what the title says, the golden age of radio, as far as that's concerned anyway. And so they would air 2 old time radio shows, half-hour old time radio shows from back in that era. And some nights it would be a Fibber McGee and Molly comedy, and the other half would be um, uh, suspense or whatnot. Sometimes it would be a thriller spy show. One of them would be, I remember, The Man Called X. It was basically a spy show. And, then sometimes it would be, the other one would be science fiction. X minus one is a famous example. Um, and you beat me to it, Davy. Uh, Quiet Please. If you want to hear weird fiction in old time radio, Quiet Please is the one to listen to. And I would listen to all of them. Several of them, you really have to work to hear it, but because the where pristine recordings were not preserved, let's put it that way. But if you go to this website, it's quietplease.org. I wanted to make sure I had that right. It tells you a bit about it, and which I won't get into that now. And then just click on episodes after that. The first one is called Nothing Behind the Door. It's actually a really good one. And this particular website has a noise reduced version that you can check off. And that's not perfect either, but it's better than the other. So, um, I recommend listening to all of them, especially when you're laying in bed at night in the dark, waiting to go to sleep. But if anybody wants to write this down now or later, it's up to you. But Nothing Behind the Door, I'm going by memory here, is really great. Um, I'm just going to pick out several. Excuse me a second. Rain on New Year's Eve is extremely eerie. Um, Jazz, you might particularly like this one because, well, the tagline is writer merges with the monster in his film. I don't think that quite describes it, but it is about the filmmaking industry at the time, I guess. So, Nothing Behind the Door, Rain on New Year's Eve. Rain on New Year's Eve is just superb. Well, they both are really. Um, There Are Shadows Here is another one that's really, really eerie. And every time anyone that knows somewhat about it mentions Quiet Please, someone else mentions the episode The Thing on the Forward Board, episode 60. Sure, it's good, but it's overhyped. Um, it's definitely worth a listen, but I think some of these others are even better. I'll give you a couple more and then I'll read another poem here. Okay, Northern Lights is got a bit of cosmic horror in it. So those are four. Here's one more for you, although this is just 4 or 5 out of a great series. This one is called The Other Side of the Stars. So check those out and do me a favor. As always, if you'll shoot me an email. Nightfall is superb, man. Yeah, Rain on New Year's Eve, Chaz. Uh, Really, the only, what I really love when I give recommendations to people is, maybe they get to it a year later. I don't know. But whenever they do get to reading something or listening to something or watching something that I recommended, shoot me an email and let me know. So I hope you do. Speaking of recommendations, if you haven't watched the horror film Head Count, you should, and you should skip the trailer and not read anything about it. It's very, very creepy. I'm also, well, I'll get into the rest of this on Thursday night. I apologize. I'm talking too much about other stuff. All right. Now I was gonna, yeah, okay. Once by the Pacific. Almost said specific again. So gather around the campfire, kids. Or are you sitting comfortably? Then we'll begin. The shattered water made a misty din. Great waves looked over others coming in, and thought of doing something to the shore that water never did to land before. The clouds were low and hairy in the skies, like locks blown forward in the gleam of eyes. You could not tell, and yet it looked as if the shore was lucky in being backed by cliff, the cliff in being backed by continent. It looked as if a night of dark intent was coming, and not only a night and age. Someone had better be prepared for rage. There would be more than ocean water broken before God's last put out the light was spoken. All right. Let's see what else I can read here. Wow, I've already killed nearly an hour. Highlighting in my Kindle is so handy. All right, this one I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's just a few lines. It's a bit long, but I really only wanted to read a couple lines to you. It's called, you can read the whole thing later if you'd like, of course. An Old Man's Winter Night. The first two lines. All out of doors looked darkly in at him through the thin frost, almost in separate stars that gathers on the pane in empty rooms. I don't know. I just like that. Did you guys hear that train whistle? Trains going by. I feel like I'm forgetting one of my favorite Frost poems. Of course, I haven't really, I deliberately haven't read the more famous ones. Let me just double check myself. Of course, there's The Road Not Taken. Um, Wonderful, very often quoted poem. There is Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening, which, you know, it's it's famous, it's quoted a lot, and I never get tired of reading it either. It again, it just, oh, I know that's what I, yep, I found the one that I couldn't think of. Two, three. All right, I won't keep you too long, but here we go. Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening. If I read that, I'll save it to last. You guys are familiar with that one, but it reminds me of Iowa in the wintertime. You're near DFW, Davy? Cool. We're pretty close. I'm about 30 minutes away from Dallas. Okay, so I'm sure you're familiar with this one, but it's dark, it's moody. I love it. I'm going to read it. Davy, in Waxahachie. That's about, it's south of Dallas, maybe southeast, something like that. Anyway, Acquainted with the Night. I'm sure you've read this. But don't we all of us weirdos, don't we all identify with this? I have been one acquainted with the night. I have walked out in rain and back in rain. I have outwalked the furthest city light. I have looked down the saddest city lane. I have passed the watchman on his beat and dropped my eyes, unwilling to explain. I have stood still and stopped the sound of feet when far away an interrupted cry came over houses from another street, but not to call me back or say goodbye. And further still, at an unearthly height, one luminary clock against the sky proclaimed the time was neither wrong nor right. I have been one acquainted with the night. Davey, they're talking about that courthouse clock in Waxahachie, right? So you live a small world, huh? You lived in Waxahachie for 7 years. Wow, man, small world. So I guess you're coming to the eZine Con, right? Because you're close. All right. Yeah, I deliberately kept the more famous ones to the end. I wanted to make sure I got in the ones that aren't as well known, let's say. Fire and ice. I'm sure you're familiar. Some say the world will end in fire. But hang on. But you guys see what I mean about Frost, right? What a what dark poetry he wrote. And he wrote a lot of pastoral stuff too. Uh, don't get me wrong. But yeah, some dark stuff, some moody atmospheric stuff, maybe more accurately. Some say the world will end in fire. Some say in ice. From what I've tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. But if it had to perish twice, I think I know enough of hate to say that for destruction ice is also great and would suffice. Uh, and of course, astronomy tells us that the world will most likely end in fire when we get too close to the sun billions of years from now. All right, got time for one more? That okay? Yeah, acquainted with the night. I mean, I just really identify with that poem. I mean, walking at night, feeling like maybe you're the only person awake in the world, right? You took many people to the courthouse. Oh, wow, you're an expert. And I'm not being sarcastic. Extolling the legends of the fiendish faces. Davey, you're gonna have to tell me about that. Cool. All right. Why don't I end with a famous one here? And next week, probably next week, I gotta count the words on this to see if an hour will get it done. But I'll be reading a story of Laird's probably next week. If not next week, then the week after, uh, with permission, of course. All right. Now we are stopping by woods on a snowy evening. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. I read somewhere that Frost was really battling with that last stanza, you know, what to write, what to do, how he wanted it to come out, until he realized that the best thing to do would be to simply repeat the third line. And it it works so well. I was talking about talent earlier, and the man had it. He really did. All right, so yeah, Davey, everyone, I honestly, just like Thursday night, just like Tuesday night, started as an experiment, and you guys said, yeah, we like this. Let's do this. Same thing with the Lovecraft using con. Uh, I, you guys really want to make this happen, and I certainly do too. So, what I think I will do is sometime in the next 6 months, roughly or so, is do a Kickstarter so that we can cover our main costs and um, have a place to chat, have our little panels, whatever we come up with, okay? And I will probably build into that Kickstarter, uh, a free dinner for patrons, you know, and I would love to do that at the patron dinner at Necronomicon. I can't because I'm poor, but at the eZine Con, I will do a Kickstarter so that I can do that. Now, before I go, let me ask a couple questions. Um, who's going to Necronomicon in 2026? Seriously, if you think you probably will. Who's going to? I'm naming the ones I'll be at. Uh, 2026 Necronomicon. Awesome, Donna, Chaz, so far. Um, who is going to the Portland HP Lovecraft Film Festival? Not this year, but next year. I'll be going to that one. Okay. And are you? If you live in the Dallas area, I guess this is kind of a easy yes. But for those of you who do live in the Dallas area, and for those who, especially who are not in the Dallas area, let me know if you plan on going to the eZine Con. Uh, one of the things that I want to build into the plans is making sure that I can accommodate as many of your schedules as possible. And by you guys, certainly I mean my viewers, listeners, whatever, but especially those that are patrons, because I want to hopefully give a little bit more back and just make sure that as many of you who want to go can go, that our schedules line up. Um, yeah, I don't know if they're doing mobile again. No, mobile, is it mobile or mobile? Anyway, and no, Kelly, we don't have a date for the eZine Con yet. That's one of the things I want to get planned with Pete, and if you're going, Alan, your input and so on and so forth too. But what I mean is that I want as many patrons and listeners and viewers. I'd like to you're never going to line up everybody's schedule, but line up as many people on a weekend that if you want to go to the eZine Con, you can. So basically, stay tuned. I'll talk about it on several of the Thursday show or Sunday show or both sometime in the coming months, and I'll post about it in the usual places like the Patreon and the YouTube community, and also, of course, the Facebook group. So, all the normal places. If if you're interested in this and it's been 3 months and you haven't seen or heard from me on this, then it was probably ships passing in the night. But certainly email me and say, Mike, what's going on with the eZine Con? I don't want to leave anybody out. So yeah. Oh, Davey, thank you, man. Appreciate it. Really do. And everybody's got to get up tomorrow. I'm a little reluctant to get off because I love hanging with you guys. I love this community, the weird fiction community, and I love the community within a community of eZine fans and followers and listeners and patrons, and and all that stuff. So yeah, I appreciate you guys. I'm working on a post, an article for my Substack that I'm gonna dive into this a little bit, but I told Danielle that more and more I realize and look around at my life, and I realize that I'm living my dream life. Of course, if somebody has a spare $1 million and they want to give it to me, yeah, money's great, right? We all need money. Um, and of course, I'd love for my health to be better. But those are just, I go through a lot of physical pain, a lot. And I'm not complaining. I just want to make a point. For example, last night I was up half the night because I hurt so bad that I couldn't get to sleep. Finally, I went and got another sleeping pill, and finally I knocked myself out. I would love to be pain free, but things like being pain free, things like a lot of money are, as they say, that's gravy. I used to make a lot of money in real estate, but I would not go back. I wouldn't trade the friendships I've made, with all of you. Wouldn't trade what I do to go back to real estate and making all that money. And believe me, I enjoyed real estate. I did. I felt like I was helping people, especially my specialty was first time home buyers, helping kids make the right decisions instead of talking to some smooth talking realtor who just wanted to, make another sale. So I felt like I was doing a good thing and making great money, but I would not go back. And my point is, I hesitate to say this kind of thing because I don't want it to come off as like, oh, I'm so great or I'm bragging or anything like that. My wife is living her dream life too. She's a teacher. She loves what she does. And that's what it really boils down to, right? Loving what you do. And a couple of things loving what you do for a living, loving the family that you have a lot, and the friends and so forth that you have a lot. And when you talk about things like money and health, at least to a certain percent, that those things are just extras. So, in typical old man fashion, I have no idea how I even got talking about that. Chaz says, speaking selfishly, I'm certainly happy you made that decision. Thanks, man. Uh, I appreciate it. I've been glad to get to know you. Really, I feel like I've met all of you in person already, but I'm looking forward to uh, seeing you at the next convention that we'll all be at. So yeah, you just turned 60, Kelly. Yeah, I turned 53 this year, but I like to joke that I got old overnight, instantly, about 16, 17 years ago when I got sick, and it was literally overnight. But I was like, I don't know, 37, something like that, and instantly I was an old man, so to speak, using a cane a lot of the time and all that all that junk. Anyway, if you guys have suggestions, comments, questions, it's Lovecraft eZine at gmail.com. That's the best way to reach me where I won't lose the message. Lovecraft EZINE, or my full name at Gmail, which is, I was named after Bob Dylan. That's my middle name. Michael Dylan Davis at gmail.com. They both go to the same place, so just use whichever you want to use. Um, Michael is always Michael. Dylan is, well, if you don't know how to spell Dylan, I think you're probably really, really young, right? And funny thing is, my little sister was named after Bob Dylan too. How's that possible, you say? Well, her middle name is Delane, Dylane. So, so anyway, there. Oh, I got to see. There's going to be a new. There's. I saw a trailer for a Bob Dylan movie. I don't know when it's coming out, but man, I got to see that. Um, can't wait. Anyway, I have more stuff to talk about on Thursday night, and Davey, it's nice to know that you're close by, physically close, same area. And thank you for becoming a Patreon. Thanks to all of you for being here, Alan and others. I know you got to get up early in the morning, so I'll let you go. But thanks for hanging out with me on Tuesday night. And oh, I'm sorry. One last thing. Uh, when tomorrow? Let me pull up the calendar. I'm sorry. What's today? The third. Yeah, tomorrow at 1. I think this is just a recording. I'm a guest on Nick Bodick's podcast. I think he records them and then puts them out later. So I'll keep you posted on that. But at 4 p.m. Eastern, I am interviewing Nathan Ballingard. And Nathan is a fantastic writer. One of his newest books is this here, The Crypt of the Moon Spider. And it's a novella. It's not a long read, but it's fantastic. It's beautiful, kind of Bradbury-esque. And I haven't read his novel The Strange yet, which is set on Mars actually, but I'm going to. Um, yeah, Crypt of the Moon Spider, really, really good, and even better, it's book one of a trilogy. Yeah, book one of the Lunar Gothic trilogy. So I like the sound of that. So that's it. If you want to watch live, that's at 4 p.m. tomorrow, which is September the 4th, 2024. And I think I'm going to be on my friend Vince's podcast tomorrow night. I got 3 podcasts tomorrow. So anyway, thanks everybody. Love you guys. Thanks for hanging out with me. Good night.